So that delta x equals the square root of 0.077a squared minus 0, from which we derive the square root of 0.077a squared. And also, the uncertainty in p is equal to the square root of bracket p squared minus bracket p squared, which also equals the square root of h over a squared, which lets us delta x, delta p equals the square root of 0.077a squared h over a squared, and 1.74 h bar, okay? The uncertainty principle. It proves we can't ever really know what's going on.
The Heisenberg uncertainty principle is one of a handful of ideas from quantum physics to expand into general pop culture. It says that you can never simultaneously know the exact position and the exact speed of an object, and shows up as a metaphor in everything from literary criticism to sports commentary. Uncertainty is often explained as a result of measurement, that the act of measuring an object's position changes its speed, or vice versa. The real origin is much deeper and more amazing. The uncertainty principle exists because everything in the universe behaves like both a particle and a wave at the same time. In quantum mechanics, the exact position and exact speed of an object have no meaning.
Ultimately, there is nothing even in existence until you focus on it, right? In the quantum physics, right? If you don't look at a particle, it's just infinite, right? So
if you do look at it,
then it pops into existence.
Or it runs away, so you can't really see it.
Okay, but you understand what I'm saying. I mean, if you
yes.
get down to the real truth of, or at least the truth, the closest we could understand to infiniteness, because obviously words, they don't really mean anything, so it's very hard to talk about these subjects and have it be meaningful.
Yeah.
But really, this is all there is.
That's my friend Todd. He's a little older than me, but our families have been friends for as long as I can remember. That's me sitting on Todd's father's shoulders, and that's Todd. A few weeks ago, I invited him to Crown Heights to speak to Rabbi Manis about God, Torah, and science. And this is what happened.
Okay, so let's try this. We're discovering that the physical, if you reduce it down to the ridiculously small, stops being physical.
Okay.
Because, it can't go on forever like that. So eventually you reach a point where it's not a small particle. There's just nothing. And yet, out of this nothing, these particles come together, or somehow, whatever, which really basically means that the world was created out of nothing. So if
Well, that just means the world is God in a sense.
Something
This
like that.
table
Yes.
it's not the God of the guy in the sky. This thing itself is infinite, which is another word for God.
Except that the infinity is not showing. What's showing is finite pieces. And only under the microscope you get to see what's really not there. So here's the thing. When we think about God, and you can't not, because eventually you get back to the nothing, right?
Well, that is the God.
Right. So what the Torah tells us is that the God of everything transforms or transmutes into this by choice. He didn't have to. Because he's nothing. Why? Nothing has no rules. So what the catalyst that caused the nothing to take on these forms and these was a desire. There was no force that imposed it because there were no forces. It's not like this was necessary, so it demanded its existence. It didn't. So what would motivate the nothing to change, to transform, to devolve? So the theory of evolution, right? The Big Bang. What's wrong, seriously wrong, is that you cannot start with two things. If you want to talk about the origins, we'll start with two things. There were the gases and there was the particles. Now wait a minute. First there were particles, or first there were gases?
Well, and once you get to quantum mechanics, it's all made up anyways. So it's just another story.
But in principle.
No, I'm with you.
Okay, so in principle, if there was one original essence, that's the end of the story.
I agree with that.
If there's one original, then what?
I 1000% agree with that.
So the only way to explain a Big Bang is if you have two things and they collide. Otherwise, what's the catalyst?
Fair enough.
Okay, so if God is the original substance, what was his catalyst?
Again, it's not something you could say in words.
So what Torah says is that what motivated, if you can go, God to do anything was that the primary definition of God is an original being who wants. Otherwise, nothing would ever happen.
Okay, let's say I accept that, which already, once you say something like it wants, it's kind of like, it doesn't really make sense to me because you're already going down a very humanistic road when you say something like it wants. It doesn't want.
Well,
and that's kind of.
But even in your own philosophy, the difference between the humanistic and the divine is just a matter of stages. Because, this was once a tree, and it was once an atom, and it was once nothing. So it's just grades of the same.
Okay.
So we're starting with God, and we're ending up with a human being. They're not going to be that different.
No, I'm saying the whole thing is God.
Right. So the humanistic, to say, you can't describe God in such humanistic terms. Well, why not? Why not? Where does humanistic come from?
Because I think that when you're kind of minimizing God when you talk like that. When you say that, you limit God. And to me, we're talking about something infinite, so you can't really put those kind of.
That's a very good point. That's where all the religious people bomb. That's where Judaism falls apart. The God we believe in and the God we worship is so infinite you can't say anything about him. Then let's go home.
I agree. We should. I think what we should do is say this is the best thing I could say in human words that would most. Again, it wouldn't mean anything, but it would be the closest pointer, let's say. I would say, you're here for a gift movie experience. Why? Just because this thing wanted to do something fun for you.
Right.
Okay? And what do you do with a gift? Appreciate it. That's the goal of the gift giver, is that the person should appreciate it. And what's the number one way you can appreciate something? Stop judging it. Because if you're in the judgment, you can never really appreciate anything because you're constantly with the good and the bad and the good and the bad and the good and the bad. But if you just move back for a second and go, you know what, I appreciate this amazing movie for all the things. Sometimes I have a stomach ache, sometimes I feel great, sometimes I have this experience. Just an amazing collage of movie experiences. The experience machine, call it, right? That somebody gifted, again, not somebody, but
the ultimate.
It is really experiencing itself, having this experience. So to me, the goal, again, a stupid word, should be step back and appreciate and get out of the good and the bad. And I think then there's some kind of magical energy that transforms where all the stuff that you originally wanted starts coming without effort. And you know, it's almost like you ever have this experience? You're like, should I offer this person a ride or should I not offer this person a ride? And you don't really want to do it. And then you go, you know what? I'll offer them a ride. So you offer them a ride. And then they go, you know what? I didn't need the ride anyways. It was almost like a big game, So I feel like there's some weird cosmic thing going on there.
I agree.
But I don't buy the whole good and the bad and the want. I don't buy that.
Well, you can't avoid the want. If he wants to give you this experience,
okay,
he gifted you.
From that, again, and my example again is not really a gift. Again, it's a word, and it doesn't really make sense.
Okay,
because I always think of it as a word. How do they define words? with words, right? And what did the first word mean? Words really don't mean anything. They're just pointers to other words.
Right, but we do communicate and we can agree on something, so the words are working.
Only because that's part of our movie.
Yes, fine.
We could just as easily be talking, and you could look at this thing and go, oh, that's brown, and I could go, oh, look, that's brown, but you're really seeing what I call green, and I'm really seeing what you call brown, but we're all just consistent because I'm creating my movie and you're creating your movie.
Okay, but the description you gave, I think, is perfect. God gifted us this. Now, the right way to respond, right? So there is a right way and a wrong way.
No.
There has
It's
to
just
be.
the perfect way, which is what
Okay.
you're going to do. So I'm looking, if you do it the wrong way, what you would call the wrong way, that was perfect. And if you do it the right way, that was also perfect. You're just labeling it right and wrong.
No, you labeled it.
No, how did I
You
say
said
that?
the right way to respond to a gift.
Again, the problem with that, it's words again.
Okay, fine, but I agree with you.
I know, but
I like those words.
It doesn't really, because there's no right way to do anything. If your movie was to get amazing gift and not appreciate it, that would also be correct, because that would have been your story.
And therefore you should appreciate it.
No, and you
There's
can't.
nothing not to appreciate.
You can't do what else you're gonna. You would have grown up in Pakistan, okay, with the same joie de vivre or whatever the word is, right? The same genre. You would have been a madrasa teacher, and you would have told people, a good idea would be to go bomb the city center today, right? Because you probably would have been on the fundamentalist fringe of that kind of group, right?
How do you know me so well?
Well, I'm just saying, you're a fundamentalist right now. It's not bad or good also.
No.
Those guys aren't bad because they're bombing the city center.
Okay. But now we're getting into freedom of choice.
it always comes back
can
to
a
that.
German in Germany during the Nazis say, no, I don't agree with this. This is terrible.
Yes, but that has nothing to do with his choice.
Yeah.
That has to do with all the things, all the little things that happened to him, the million of moments that happened to him. His mom told him eat seconds today, and his dad yelled at him when he read a book, and this happened, and then his dad praised him, and then his mom. That created that guy who in that moment made that quote unquote you would call choice. Wasn't. That's what he was going to be. And if you had the same DNA and nurture and nature that happened to him in all those moments, you too would have made the perfect choice.
So let's do one thing at a time, because we're going to get... If that's how God evolved into this whole thing, that we have no choice, there is no choice to make, really.
Well, there's the illusion of choice.
Yeah, but it's not really a choice, because what's the difference? If you go this way, that way, same thing.
It is. I 100% agree with you. Go ahead.
So, but first,
You don't control your thoughts, right? Like thoughts pop in your head. You were probably walking down here today and you were like, oh, I forgot the dry cleaning. But you didn't think, I want to think I forgot the dry cleaning. No, it just popped in your head. That wasn't really a choice.
no.
And then when you get to the inflection point, which is that it looks like a choice, right? There's another pop that goes in and goes, no, Manas, do it this because of whatever.
So who wins?
Whatever God puts into your head on the last shot wins.
Okay. So God is really running the world like a...
It is the world.
Yeah. So he is very involved.
it.
It is really totally involved in this.
Well, that's all there is.
Right. So what instigated this whole thing in God?
If I can't even understand the infinite, how am I going to understand the instigation of the infinite?
Why would infinite mean no description? Why doesn't infinite mean every possible description?
It can, but it doesn't mean that me and you were created to understand what it means. What does infinite mean? When I talk about time and space and gravity bending time, and I mean, this stuff gets so mind-blowingly beyond understanding. They can look at one particle and they look at the other particle hundreds of millions of miles away, and it's exactly opposite, but it can't speak faster than the speed of light. And Einstein goes,
And that's just physical.
exactly. And we're right. And we're just talking about physical.
Right.
So the whole thing is like, That's why I keep saying, I'm looking at all these things, and me and you are agreeing that there's this library here. I'm even agreeing that there's you. I'm even agreeing that this is my hand, but it's really not, right? And as soon as I walk into the other room, all of a sudden, a whole nother room pops into existence. But I think it was there the whole time.
Fine. But why assume that it's not real? Assume it's all real.
Well, because obviously in my story, I was exposed to science, whatever that means.
Which is real.
Another story in the illusion.
So they're all real. See, in infinity, you can go either way.
Okay,
Nothing
fine.
is real,
Okay,
or
fine.
everything is real.
Okay, fine. It doesn't, whether it's real, whether it's not real. Again, what does that even mean? The word real. The bottom line is, I'm not going to understand what's happening here. Just like I didn't even know I was me until a certain time. I'm sure at 2, you didn't know you were you, right? All of a sudden, one day the lights went on, and you were like, oh, should I steal that cookie out of my mom's jar or not? By the way, all those decisions will have a major effect on how you were raised
All your other
when you
decisions.
were 0 years old, because your mom, like if your mom put you in the corner and didn't hug you or kiss you or anything, chances are when the lights come on, you're not going to be making too many of what you would call the right choices, right? Would that be your fault? No. If that would have happened to me or you, we would have done the same thing. So it's not bad, it's just that experience. So now back to your free choice thing. So go ahead, you were saying it instigates it.
So instead of saying we know nothing about God because he's infinite, we can also say we know everything about God because he's infinite.
Okay, fair enough.
So infinite doesn't mean he's locked away in some mysterious place unavailable to this.
Fair enough.
He's as much as this as he is
Fair enough.
mysterious, and so it's a good thing to try to understand and make sense of it, because it gives life a structure, a direction, something, rather
You're
than
making judgments that having structure and direction is
Which is-
somehow good.
it
It's just
can't-
another experience,
yeah, and as good as any other.
as good as any other.
Right. So when the Torah comes along and says, let me tell you something about the stuff you'll never see. God created a flood because he was angry at the people. You would never know that. But I'm telling you that that's what happened. Which means that in God's infinity, anger is included. There's
Agreed.
nothing left out. So sometimes God gets angry,
Okay.
and sometimes he gets pleasure. So in his actually it's even more impressive than infinity that God was not content. He was everything, he is everything,
But you're talking about it like it's a human again.
he's everything. So he's
Right.
he's
It's
human,
not a human.
but he's
It's
not
a human and a book and a this and a that and
Right.
the other thing.
Right. So if human beings have some sense of purpose or
This is your purpose. This is your purpose.
right, so he certainly has a sense of purpose. How would he not? How would it be precluded?
This is his purpose.
Okay,
For you to say what you're saying right now
Yes.
is his purpose.
fine.
And for me to be sitting here and saying what I'm saying is his purpose. And neither of them are good or bad. They
Okay.
just are.
Okay, but now we're agreeing he has a purpose. He's not a senseless God, because why would he be? He's infinite.
Okay, but I'm see now you're okay, keep going. I feel like you're barking up the wrong tree, but keep going.
So in infinity, if you're talking about true infinity, not just bigger and bigger and bigger, that's not infinity.
No, what I mean by infinity is something that defies human understanding.
Because it's much bigger and much smaller and neither big nor small.
It's beyond even like it's like saying what's the marital status of the number 5? It doesn't even make sense. You know what I mean? It's like a whole nother category. Just like, okay, our brains can just go this far, and that's as far as we can go.
Okay, so our insistence that God is too big to care,
I never said too big to care.
whatever, too infinite,
No, I didn't. I don't ascribe these human emotions to the instigator of it all.
but you can't exclude it from him either.
I don't know. No, okay, fair enough. I'll give you that.
I mean, if he can be a
No,
table,
I'll give you that.
if he can be a table.
Fair enough.
So actually, the greatest thing we know about God is not that he's infinite, but that in his infinity, he cares. He wants something. He's got, we call it a human trait, but it's the best human trait.
I mean, to me, it feels like more of a mystery, and it's supposed to be a mystery.
That's fine. Why would he want? That's a mystery. But
You're not going to know everything right now.
it's true.
Did you know everything when you were 2?
Yep. And we will never know everything.
Right. So
Okay.
maybe we're still in the stage where it hasn't come clear as to what's really going on here.
Maybe.
Okay.
Maybe. But just like we know more about the table today than we ever knew,
Right.
we know more about God than we ever knew through the Torah.
But the Torah is just another story inside the story.
That's the story.
It's a story inside the story.
Well, what else is there?
What do you mean? What else is there?
Is there a reality besides the story? This is the whole reality. This
For
is
people
everything.
who've never heard of the Torah, there's no Torah.
And for,
There's-
and for
it's not
people
part of
who,
their story.
and for people who never heard of an atom,
That's not part of their story either.
okay, but it exists.
So
In,
there's no objective. That's what I'm trying to say. There's no objective Torah. Oh, the Torah exists. And this guy in China who never heard about it, he just never heard of it yet. But he's going to hear about it sooner or later. No, he may go his whole life never hearing about the Torah. But for me and you, we play this game called hearing about the Torah. I hear about it and I go, great story. You hear about it and you think, oh, this is what God told me to do. But that's also part of the story.
yes, and the atom is also part of the story.
Right.
And some people don't know there are atoms.
Fair enough.
So what? If you do know, you know.
Right.
If you've heard it, you've heard it.
Right, but my story may be to see it as part of the story.
Yes.
Another interesting part of the story of how you, like the way I see it is, how human beings wanted to find God and almost minimize it in a sense. That's the way I see it. And you see it as the whole way you're supposed to conduct yourself in the story. Right?
Yeah,
No right or wrong on that either.
fine,
Okay.
fine. What I'm trying to do is not convince you of what's right or wrong. I'm trying to get some definitions.
Okay.
When we talk about God, what are we talking about?
Okay.
When we talk about infinite, what are we talking about?
Okay.
What do we mean by those words?
I mean ununderstandable by humans.
To some degree. But we got to make sense of whatever we can.
Why? Why can't we just be okay with not understanding? Why can't we just
Because
be...
that's insanity.
No, it's not. Why is it insane? Why can't we just be honest and just say, look, here's something that happened. I have no idea what's really going on
Whoa,
here.
whoa, whoa, whoa.
And I'm not going to impose
The-
my ideals that I
Before-
supposedly thought of.
Before we get to ideals,
Yeah.
just tell me what's going on. Is this a table? Is that a book? What's going on?
Again, you're back to the words again. That it doesn't really mean
But can you
anything.
read?
That's the point
Can
here.
you read a book?
Yeah, so
Can
what?
you read a table?
You can have a whole million experiences with tables.
But you got to know. You can't not know.
What do you mean not know?
You got to know what's a book and what's a table.
Look, all
You
I
got to know if a
is-
door is closed before you walk through it.
No, I have no problem with that.
So what
these
don't we know?
We're having these human experiences
Right.
in the void of nothing. Okay, that's just beyond understanding. So I
So
don't
how do you
care
make it-
about the table. I don't care about reading the book. You're going to have a bunch of experiences here.
But you're going to drive down the street?
If that's what I've decided to do today.
Fine,
Some days
fine.
I decide not to.
Yes, but when you're driving down the street, you got to know when to stop.
Maybe.
Well, maybe you'll get killed.
Yeah, so maybe I'll get killed.
So you need to know when to stop.
Trust me, whatever put me here, if it wants me to know when to stop, I'll know when to stop.
Okay, so whatever put you here wants you to know him. So he made the
No, maybe
information
maybe
available.
He wants to make it a mystery right now.
Maybe.
I mean, it's pretty clear to me that there's a lot of mystery around this situation.
there is.
If it was so clear that he wanted stuff, there's a lot better ways than creating something called the Torah that supposedly happened 3,000 years ago with these people, and they went to Egypt, and they went here. Just go on Facebook, create a page. Hey, I'm God. Boom. Done. It's much simpler. And this thing, by the
You
way,
should suggest that.
this thing, let me tell you
Give him that
something.
idea.
It's not doing a great job. If what it wants is to make you want to do what it wants, not doing a great job with these storybooks of Torahs. And even if it was perfect, even if the Torah was really good, not a great job. it could do a much, much better job. First of all, I would think it would want to get more people involved. That's number one. And number two, I would think it would make it very, very clear what it really wanted you to do if that was so important to it. So I think it's much, much more honest to say maybe mystery is part of the story. It seems much, much clearer in what's really going on, because I mean, come on, you're really pushing here. With 3,000 years ago, you got stories, you got people telling you. You ever play telephone? You know how that thing comes around, you got a whole nother story going on, in 2 seconds. Now you went 3,000 years ago, you want to tell me about people, and they went to Egypt, and they did this and that. I think there's much better ways to communicate a good want than your story. What do you think?
I think there are better ways to communicate.
So you're saying the infinite being, this thing that's unbelievable, it can do things this is the best it can do on communication. I don't know. That's rough.
It's like a really, really smart guy, and he can't talk to his wife.
It's like you ever
can't talk to his wife.
You ever hear George Carlin do the shtick on this?
On what?
About he goes, there's this thing, and it's omnipresent, and it's this, and it's that, and it's amazing. But it's not good with money. It needs money.
Your money.
Exactly.
See, this is where we run into the reason the project is not as successful as it should be, that he's not communicating.
God project.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is because he gave us freedom of choice.
Yeah, I knew you were going to say it.
Sure.
Like I say, it always comes back to that.
Yeah.
But I can clearly show you where it doesn't seem like there's a lot of choice. You really, I mean, honestly, at least I don't understand what you think free choice is.